Welcome to my channel. This is Lesson 3 Intro to Poly Modeling using Autodesk Maya. So from this point on, we'll be learning through actually making objects using Maya. And what we'll be striving to make is a wine set scene. It will be a nice scene with most of the manipulations and techniques that we use in Maya, and we'll accomplish them using different techniques, different things that we have to use in Maya and learn from there. Now we can start with our lesson 3.
So the first thing that you want to do is open up a new Maya scene. We want to save this scene as, let's say, wine bottle. Choose what folder you want to save it at. Alright, now once we've created the folder, let's save this scene first of all. Save scene, let's name the scene wine bottle. Now, let's start by looking for, I found one wine bottle picture reference, and how you import that picture is once you save it, you can check here. Once you hold over it, you'll see image plane. Now, instead of your perspective view, what you want to do is press space, or by clicking here, and we want the side view. So once we hover our mouse over the side view, we press space again. This is our side view. Let's import our image. Click this and find the image where you saved it at. And you'll see that I have two images here. One image is the side view of the wine bottle and the wine glass, which we will be making. And later on, I'll be adding a picture to that wine bottle right around here. First, let's just select the image for our wine bottle reference. We want a perfect side view. If you have a bottom and top view, that would also be perfect. But for now, let's work with the side view. Click open, and there you go. It's imported into your scene on the side. Now, once you press spacebar, you'll notice that the image imports dead in the center of our perspective. Now, the only problem with that, now I'm switching the views by holding Alt and dragging with my left key. So once you import the image, you'll see that it's dead in the center. Now, why we don't want that is because once we import a shape, it's going to be in between the images, which is not what we want. What we want to do is select our image, either here, or we can go to our outline and select here. Let's actually rename this image wine bottle reference. Now, just like how we learned before, we want to move this backwards and we have to translate it. Now we can click this, which is your move tool. Click this, or a fast way, a short key, is to press W. W automatically switches to the move tool. So if I were to select something else, like a mouse, and I click W, I have to select the object first. And once I press W, it automatically comes to the move tool. Now you can move it back and forth. Let's move it backwards. Now you see that this doesn't change at all. It does not affect this at all. But you can also see that if I move it in front of the cube is no longer visible here. So what we want to do is move it all the way back. And we can now see the objects that we place in front. We can manipulate this object any way we want to. Now, to move objects, all of the short keys are for it to move, it's W. For rotating, it's E, and R is to scale. So W to move, E to rotate your object, and R to scale it. Now, one problem we might have is, as you can see, when we move to the rotate, this rotating tool is really big and it's not comfortable for us in the screen that we have. What we want to do, how we change the shape of this, is by clicking minus or plus in your keyboard. So if you press minus, it becomes smaller. If you press plus, it becomes much bigger. And now we want it somewhat around the shape or even smaller. I would say this is comfortable, and that's how you manipulate it. One other thing is, if you want to freely move it without these guides, you can always click it in between the space and move it however you want it to. I do not recommend this though, as it is very confusing as it moves in your Y and X axis very unpredicted, in a very unpredicted way. So now let's start with our line bottom. Let's delete this shape and let's go to our side view at first. So we will be creating this wine bottle. Let's actually move this image so that the wine bottle is in the center. We have our guidelines. We'll ignore this wine glass for now. Now that we have the wine bottle in the middle, the best option is to import a cylinder polygon. Now let's scale it up. Now you can see it is just a square, but this is our side view. When you go to our perspective view, it is a cylinder. Now what we want is a smooth round bottle. And how do we do that? We go to our channel layer editor, and where we see inputs, click on the poly cylinder. Now you'll see the options on the manipulation of this specific polygon. What you can do to make it smoother is change your subdivision axis. Your subdivision axis is how many sides there are. So like we said last time, let's check our faces. You hold your right click and drag to your face. And that's one way where you can select all the faces individually. So if you do this, you can manipulate the shape however you see fit. You can even scale it or rotate it. Now let's go back. So, just like we said, once we select the inputs, this 20 number means that there are 20 sides. Now we want much more sides so that it is much smoother. So what you want to do, instead of clicking and writing a number down, what we can do is hover your mouse over the 20 and you'll see this arrow pop up, a certain left and right arrow. You can click and just drag right while you're holding your mouse key, or left for it to be smaller. So as you see, as we increase, the number of faces on the sides increase too. So I would say 50 works for now. That looks like a smooth shape. If you really want, you can bump it up to 100, but there really isn't much of a difference. The less sides there are, the more faster your computer will run, the more less taxing it is. So let's leave it at 50. Now we have the cylinder. Now we want to make this cylinder so that it's proportionate to this wine bottle that we have here. Now let's change to our floor views. Let's scale it up. And let's look at this layer to make sure that whatever we do here, we can still see the cylinder, because it's a box as we see here. It's not easy to tell. So once we come here, what we want to do is go to the scaling, which is your R, and click the middle and scale it up. If you want to be more precise, press spacebar to zoom in on the side X, zoom in more, and you can see there's a bit of space here, but there's no space here. So how about we move our object a little to the middle and scale it up. Now when you scale it up from the middle, it ensures that all the proportions are increased all at a time. So you can see here, all the sides increase. Whereas if you increase just one side, it's just that axis. So we have a shape, which is too big. Let's make it smaller, around there. Now, we can make this longer. We want to make this longer to the point where it's still a square, just not hitting the curve. The curve we can deal with later. Now, because it's up here, when we increase, you can see that this is long and we need this longer, but we don't need this longer. So how do we change that? An easy way to do that is instead of increasing with your scaling tool, what you can do is scale one side. So I would guess around there is where it starts to curve. But now we need to increase the bottom. So how we just increase the bottom is you go to your perspective, you hold right click, select faces. And what you want to do is select all the bottom faces since you want to increase this down. So a fast way to select it is selecting all of these. So this includes the sides and the bottom, but not the top. Now we want to only select the bottom. So what we can do is, since we have both of these sides selected, just hit Shift and select the items that we want removed. So now that's gone. Shift is like your minus button. So we go down, we see that all the faces are selected, none of these faces are selected. So one way is we can either use the move tool down, which is what we are going to do now, to about there when it starts to curve. This is a bit disproportionate, but we'll just guess where the curve is. Let's say around here it starts to curve. So now what do we do since it starts to curve? So an easy way to do this is actually using the extrude button. Now the extrude button is when you go to your mesh, your edit mesh, and you can see extrude here. Now when you click extrude, it basically, another arrow move tool pops up, slightly different. Just move it down to where the bottle ends. And you'll see that there's a division made here. What this allows you to do is then manipulate that division. Once you select out of the extrude tool, you can select your edges. Your edges are your lines across. Now you can see I can manipulate the lines, the individual lines. So you can actually, because we split this, you can make a separate division and edit just this proportion to this entire shape. Now a quick way, if you want to edit this entire line, maybe make this line bigger or smaller, is instead of selecting all the faces by holding Shift and clicking, which adds one at a time, what you can do is click one, and the next one, hold Shift and double click. That selects this entire line. Now then, if you want to, you can increase this or decrease this, and you can see how the shape changes. Now, what we want to do is have a curve inwards. Now, in order to do that, we'll go back to our side view and edit this accordingly. Now, what you can see here is only the object that you're manipulating, but I want to see my reference. Now, how I do that is, since the image is backwards, I have to see through this object. Let's go back to our right-click object mode. What we want to do is see through this object. Now, an easy way to do that is hit shading. We can go to our shading and hit an X-ray. What an X-ray does is literally you can see your shape, but you can also see the curve of the image. So your object will be slightly invisible and you can see through it. Now let's work with this. What we also want to do is see these lines that we have here so that we can select it easily, because now we're just guessing where the lines are. We can't actually select lines. An easy way to do that is go under shading and click on a wireframe on shaded. What that does is it gives you the lines within the shape as you select the shape. So it's still an X-ray, but you can still see the lines. Now if we go back, it does nothing different to the shape. The shape, the coloring, everything stays the same. You can see how it doesn't change at all. You can just see a more detailed version in this side view. So what we want to do is hold our right button, and we are going to use something which is vertex. Our most important manipulating tools are edge, which we can manipulate the lines, face, where we can manipulate each face, and vertex, which manipulates these dots that you see here. You can see the dots in every line, even up here. So a good way to select it is by selecting this entire line or vertex. So whatever you select, what you see here, it is selected to the back as well. So if you just want to select your front shape, you would have to select it individually. Let's go back to vertex. You would have to select it individually. So if you just want this front view, you can see that once I select this, it doesn't actually select the ones at the back. But if I were to drag, it actually does go towards the back. For now, we want the curve to end here. So what we want to do is go to our scaling tool. Let's increase the scaling tool to make it more visible, and we can just scale it inwards. There you go. Around there works. Now, there's no curve. It is just a straight line. What we want to do is, in order to use the curve tool, we actually have to make a line at the middle of the curve. So what we can do is add another line. Just like how we have the extrude line here, we have to add another line here. Now, an easy way to do this, once you've already used the extrude, is go to Mesh Tools and insert Edge Loop. Now, once you hold it to the sides, you have to click on a line that you want to manipulate. Since this is going up and down, we want to click this, and you can see it creates a line automatically for you. So you can just drag, let's say, click it around the middle, and there you go. You have another line. Now the problem is, it doesn't know to curve this. What we have to do is make this line so that it reaches around here, so that it knows that when we tell it to curve, it curves from here to here to here. So we'll go back to, we have our edge loop tool selected. So your selected tool that you're using right now will show up here, or your most recently selected tool will show up here. We want to go back to our selected. So this is still here. If you want to go back to it, your last used tool. Right now we have to go to this. And since all the lines are already selected, let's go to our scaling tool and let's scale it outwards around there. Now, the curve tool, the shortcut for the curve tool is Control B, or you can bevel. This is essentially the curve tool. Once you select this, it curves it. Now you can see it has only created an extra line to make it curve a tiny bit. What you can do is increase the segment. So hover your mouse on top of it, and same thing, you want to click and drag to the right. This increases the amount of lines there are, so this curve is more detailed, as you can see. The only problem is it only selects from this point to this point. We want from this point to this point. Now, as you can see, the fraction is actually 0.5. So it's only selecting half, it's only curving half of whatever we selected here. What we want to do is select a fraction, and that increases our width, essentially. You increase it, and now the entire thing is curved. Now, a shortcut for that is Control B. Now, I have nothing selected, so I can't use it. Now you can go back to your main shape and look at it and see. Now, there is a problem. The problem is that the shape, I'm pretty sure when we scaled it down, we only scaled it to the side. So you can see this part is long, this part is short. Easy way to fix that is just to go back. Control Z. Let's go back here. We can scale it down from the center. I think last time we used this. So let's scale it down from the middle. This is why it's important to always view this 4 scenes, so you can actually see the physical shape change. You can see it's still a circle here. Same thing. Let's go on object mode, select this object, edit. Let's go to mesh tools, insert edge loop, and put it in the middle. Scale tool. Scale it outwards. And like I said, Control B. And let's increase the fraction and increase the segments. There you go. You can see it's still a center and it curves inwards. Now, same thing for the top. Let's go to this view, go up. Okay, so what we want to do is, since we want this curve, we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go to our face, select all of these, and click, hold shift, deselect the side, so it's only deselected. Let's go back to our side view. And an easy way to actually extrude, instead of going to your edit mesh and extrude, you can see the shortcuts are actually listed on the sides, just like how we curve using Control B. We can use Control E. Or an even easier way for us is to actually, for Microsoft users, you can hold shift, and if you hover over your move tool, you'll see an extrude button, even on the sides. Now, this is the easiest way to extrude. You hold extrude, hover over, and just drag. We want to stop here because we want this curve, and then once it stops here, we want an inward curve. We actually want it here. So because there's 2 curves here, essentially, there's one going inward and there's one going outward. We want 2 different lines. So move it to where the inward shape is, hold shift again, extrude again to around there where the inward curve stops, and alt click to change the view. And because this is smaller, let's scale this. Let's go to R, scale this down. We'll also worry about this. Instead of faces. Now what we want to do is hold right click, go to our edge. Let's just, since we've selected all of this edge, we just want to select this. Like how we said, select one, shift, double click. Now scale it down. Like I said, when you want a curve, it's better to get it at the center of the curve. So because it's going inward like this, we want something here. Let's scale this down. Let's scale this up, actually. Let's use this as the middle line. This is curved. Let's move this down. Select. Zoom in. Double click. Let's move this down. So we already have a middle line instead of going to use the offset tool. Now we have a problem, which is it creates a cone. And that's because we actually manipulated this, not in the vertex as well. What we want to do is go back, and the easiest way is to just add another offset loop here. Go to your mesh tools, insert edge loop, and enter it here. This is where it curves in. Let's go to our select tool, go to our edge, and because it's already selected, let's move it inward. There we go. Let's change this, make it more in the middle of the curve. Let's say around there. And now we can press Ctrl B. Make the fraction as large as you can and increase segments. Same thing here, but because this is going inwards, it will curve like this. Select, Ctrl B, increase the fraction, and there you go. So now you can see it curves inward, outward. If you want it to be even more smoother, you can see it's straight and it goes back. It kind of has a cone shape. What you can do is actually select this entire line and press Ctrl B. And it will be even smoother. You can see it reaches that curve very smoothly. Now what we want to do is increase this all the way here. Let's select our shape. We're still using this tool, so we can go back to our mouse. And let's use the face tool. Now, this will be complicated as we have a lot of faces now. If we do this, it selects, because it goes through the shape, it selects the front and the back. And because our view is not essentially exactly straight, the tool kind of moves downwards. We want to prevent that and only select the top. What we can do, select one face, hold tab, and once you hover over it, you can see the circle and plus. What this does is it's essentially a shift while you're holding down. So hold your tab down and hold your left mouse down and drag your left mouse. And it selects everything that you're hovering over. Once you have that, go to your side view. Let's use our extrude tool again. W for the move tool. Hold shift, hover over until you have the extrude tool, and just extrude. There's a tiny bit of curve there, so we want to have another division. Let's put it in the middle of the curve. One at the end where the curve starts. Shift, extrude, one in the middle. and one at the end of the curve. Now this curve is actually increased. Let's increase this. There we go. We're matching it on the left. This picture is not straight, so we'll have to work around it. Now we want to curve this line. Hold right click, select your edges, select one, shift hold, double click, and control B. To curve, increase the fraction, so it's smoother, increase the segments. That's good. Now, again, we face the problem with selecting just the top face. We can't just select all of this and extrude increases. It creates this error. We only want the top layer face. Now, if we were to select it all again, it would take a long time. So what we want to do is, instead of using the curve and creating so many faces at once, let's go back to our original. We'll want to stay in a very sharp way. So we can select our face, shift hold to minus. Now we have our top layer selected, top face selected, just as you can see here. And let's create the bottle cap, this bit of extra space. I increased it sideways. So what I did was create this layer. By not moving it up, by making it the same length, I can just increase the sides. Move tool. And instead of moving up, we'll want to extrude. And extrude inwards. Let's go to this view, where basically instead of extruding outwards, we're extruding inwards. And let's extrude up. And there's a bit of short space here. Extrude inwards and extrude up. So now we have all our shapes and definition. Now if we want to smooth, we won't run into any interruptions. So this is the first of the curves. So we want to edge, select all, control B, increase the fractions. This is the cap, and this is the top. What we want to do here is select one, double click, and control B. Increase the fractions. Same thing for the top layer. Select one, shift double click, control B. And let's add a round shape to it. Go back to object mode, and that's it. You've created a sort of cap around here. This is what it is. This is the cap. Once you zoom out, you will have a wine bottle. Now, if you want to see the extra details, just as how you see this, you can add it without the X-ray. You can just move here, shading, and go to wireframe shaded. That shows you your object color, and your details within that object. Now you can freely, if you want to manipulate anything, your edges, your faces, you can do that pretty easily. This is you creating the wine bottle. There are different variations of wine bottles. Obviously, you can create your own. I would love to see everyone's in the community if you share, I will be making a website or a thread post where everyone can upload their own versions of the model. For the next lesson, we'll be creating this glass. And we'll be using a different technique, using a drawing technique and the mirror tool. Now, before we move on to the last step, we want to obviously save scene. Another quick way to save scene is by holding Control and clicking S. That saves it. It shows an error, no changes to save. So I didn't change anything in the scene, so it doesn't require a save. If we move the camera a bit, we can always Control S, that saves.